Disney's Jungle Cruise hits theaters this weekend, but will this film starring Emily Blunt soar sky high, or will Dwayne Johnson's latest movie hit rock bottom? It's a dad joke, the movie's full of them. Stop booing, no, boo yourself. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're diving into Disney's Jungle Cruise, which hits theaters and Disney Plus Premier Access this Friday. A huge thank you to Disney for giving me the chance to see this in theaters, and trust me, it is benefited by the big screen, but I'll let you know whether or not it's worth seeing opening weekend or if you can just rent it on Disney Plus. Now, before we get into it, guys, if it's your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where we talk about movies and TV like this early all the time. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell. You also will be the first one in the comments. Hit that thumbs up button if you're a big fan of The Rock or Emily Blunt, and also let me know down below when you see the film. Did you enjoy it? Did it live up to your expectations, or is it one of your least favorite movies of the year? I cannot wait to answer so many questions about this movie, so let's dive into who's directing it, who's starring in it, and what it's about. The film is directed by Jaume Collet-Serra and stars Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt, Edgar Ramirez, Jesse Plemons, and Paul Giamatti, and it's based on Disneyland's theme park ride where a small riverboat takes a group of travelers through a jungle-filled island with dangerous animals and reptiles, but with a supernatural surprise. Now, it's funny because that entire summary sounds much more engaging to me than the trailers because, y'all, I won't lie to you, the trailers did not sell me on the film, but after seeing this movie, guys, I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed it. Now, that's not to say I loved it, but there are some redeeming factors about this film, so let's get right into my positives, guys. And that starts with Jungle Cruise featuring the most charming duo of the year with Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson. And like I just said, going into this film, guys, the trailers didn't do much, but it was the factor of having Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt as two leads. I figured, okay, this could be kind of fun. Emily Blunt plays Lily, our explorer, looking for this petal after somehow discovering an arrowhead. It's very mysterious. And The Rock plays Frank, our skipper on this famed riverboat. Boy, it is so fun to see both of them together, and yes, their charm elevates this movie beyond levels I could not even imagine. There's really good chemistry between both of them as well, whether they're outrunning evil Prince Joachim or sharing a nice moment together at night with the Amazon River as their backdrop. I also need to know if The Rock was actually playing guitar, because if he does, dude, you want to jam, let me know, I'm your guy. But there's this awesome back and forth that they both have as well during fight scenes and pretty much any moment together that they share that I really enjoyed. And it's funny because both of them help these action scenes play as if they're stripped straight from my imagination as a child. There's a playfulness in almost every scene that really only works because of Emily Blunt and The Rock. I also love that the script caters to both of our leads and pretty much anyone involved in this film's strengths, and I'm really surprised because, guys, there's 3 credited screenwriters here, and usually that causes a lot of missteps in tone, but I didn't find that too often in this movie. Jungle Cruise really leans heavily into what works for itself, guys. It's a fun action-adventure tale that, yes, can be a bit campy at times, but it panders to both adults and children with its humor and storytelling. I mean, guys, let's get real. We have Paul Giamatti playing an Italian loan shark in the early 1900s. I mean, if that's not enough to get you sold on the film, I don't know what will. And I gotta say, I really appreciated the dad jokes that also spoke to my soul, because I too make dad jokes every day. I really do have a pair of socks that say ain't no bad joke like a dad joke. But moving on, guys, we gotta circle back to the cast because it's not all about our 2 leads here. There are a couple of other members of this cast that really steal scenes for me. And that starts with Jack Whitehall, who plays Lily's brother McGregor. He's a doofus, but he has a kind soul underneath the flashy facade he puts on for the public. I honestly love that he became a gem for me, because in the beginning I thought he's just an annoying supporting character, but eventually the film allows me to fall in love with McGregor as a character in this film that does play a pretty important role. So I really appreciated that build up, and they didn't just give us his entire arc in one go, but instead we see it played out over this 2-hour runtime. And not only did he steal more scenes than I expected, but we also got to talk about Jesse Plemons, who plays Prince Joachim. Not only does he do a great job at playing this pompous, evil villain who's really in it for domination, world domination, but I love the fact that he is eating up so many scenes. I mean, Jesse Plemons is chewing up the scenery here, and the film is better for it. And dude, Jesse Plemons is one of my favorite actors anyway, but he is seriously perfect for this role. Like, I could not have even thought of another person to play Prince Joachim other than Jesse Plemons, so he's perfect here. And outside of our cast just simply having fun, I love this sense of adventure that the film brings with it also. This is the closest I've felt to Disney World since pre-pandemic, and I live in Florida. Each moment on Frank's famous riverboat feels like I'm entering a brand new world, and even when we're taken into the ruins underground, it gave me this sense of wonder few films have this year. It also helps that this wonderful score by James Newton Howard is present. It gives this very Disney feel with a sprinkle of Indiana Jones on top, so it really does combine elements from other films while keeping this identity that Disney is so good at creating with its films. There's a formula here, but guys, the formula works for the movie. Now, with all of that being said, Jungle Cruise does have its fair share of problems, beginning with the CGI. For a Disney movie that has an estimated budget of $200 million, the CG work in this movie had no business being as muddy as it was. Not only does Frank's pet leopard Proxima look like it didn't finish rendering at times, but it just never felt as real as I've seen on-screen animals look in films in the past. I also thought that the backdrops here were just way too noticeably green screened. It never looked very natural, and we notice that very early in the movie as well, where Lily is outrunning a villain, and basically everything around her does not look real when she's hanging off this ledge. And even when we're on the riverboat, sometimes when they're going down the river, it to me feels like it's distracting from the rest of the movie. I also really didn't like the CGI for Edgar Ramirez, who plays a conquistador named Aguirre. Yes, he's supposed to look menacing and his entire face is CGI. There are CGI snakes coming out of his skin, but guys, it didn't look menacing at all, and it also didn't even feel like it was done. I almost think that this CGI was from early 2000s, and that's kind of a shame because this is a movie that has potential to really bring me into the film, but instead every time he's on screen, I'm pulled directly out of this experience. And speaking of being pulled out of the movie, guys, Jungle Cruise is at its absolute worst when it over-explains itself. We did not need as much world building as it was trying to introduce, and there was a lot of backstory given to some characters, most notably Frank, that did not work for me. There's an overly long and poorly executed flashback scene very late in the film with Frank, and not only was the writing completely uninteresting in this moment, but the background story they gave to Frank was both completely unbelievable and also problematic. But maybe that's a conversation we can have down below in the comments if you want to dive a little bit deeper. Again, this is a spoiler-free review, but what I will say is that this does not feel like it's massaged into the film, and unfortunately, just like the middle of the movie, I think this bogs down the pacing of the movie overall. Lots of conversations after that first act did not feel as impressive, and I do think it wasn't as captivating. And honestly, guys, this movie is about 20 minutes too long, and unfortunately, the third act suffers as a result. I really didn't expect a runtime at 2 hours and 7 minutes to begin with, but hey, I never prejudge a film based on that number alone. But there were just so many moments in the second act and even at the end where I feel like they were just padding the runtime, and there's a certain punch at the end that this film is supposed to deliver, but it just never lands for me, and unfortunately I think it's because they went away from the formula that worked in the beginning, where there's snappy dialogue and it's a very fast, consistent pace. But I understand that, you have to slow down and of course give some backstory to our characters. It just never felt natural to me, and there were almost weird pauses in the movie where I felt like, oh, now I'm noticing the runtime. But overall, you guys, Jungle Cruise is a movie that really benefits from its leads the most. I mean, The Rock, Emily Blunt, both of them are great individually, but I think together they're even better. There's a lot of humor in this movie that works. There's a ton of dad jokes like I mentioned, but there's enough charm that they bring that I think many kids and even adults will resonate with. There's a good supporting cast that's also present here, and there's this Disney magic that's felt throughout the film. It's just that last chunk of the movie that I think doesn't do a good job at putting the cherry on top. I do wish that this film were a little bit tighter, honestly, and maybe they could have stepped back from trying to build the world of Jungle Cruise, because gosh, like I'll tell you guys, that flashback scene really ruined a lot of what works in this movie for me. And they even use a Metallica song. I mean, just keep the regular composition that James Newton Howard had. Why do we have to add in a Metallica song? Because the guitar riffs don't work here. This is a movie set in the early 1900s. I don't need to hear Metallica in this movie, but maybe that's a little bit of a nitpick on my end. I just think that the Jungle Cruise, for all the goodwill it really earned for me in that first act, I think it's not as present in the middle and at the end, but it's still a decent movie. I still think it'll be fun for families. I just don't know if you should rush out to the theaters for this one opening weekend, although I will say, seeing it on the big screen really helped immerse me in the scenes that worked. So it is for me a strong 3.5 out of 5. But again, guys, I really do think that this script could have used a little bit more massaging. But there you have it, y'all. That's my real review of Jungle Cruise. Again, I need to know what you think of the movie when you see it this weekend, or if you see it this weekend, of course. Go ahead and get loud down below in the comments. Hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel, because guys, we got a busy week ahead. Ted Lasso, iCarly, I don't even know what else I have on the docket, but we have a lot going on this week, y'all. We just did the Dragon Prince season 3 finale. It has been so fun here at the channel. Alrighty guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And you can catch me on a boat, because I got my little bucket hat. I'm actually wearing this for the very first time. It's probably not even on right, is it?